Welcome back to another recording of the Elevate Media Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host. And today we're going to be discussing hiring. So if you're at the point in your journey where you're bringing a team on, you're bringing individuals on to help you grow and scale, take things over that you might not be the best at, this episode is going to be for you. Plus, we're going to tie it into the AI side of things that we've got going on in the world lately and all that craziness. So excited to dive into this episode. Today's guest is going to be a treat for everyone. You know, he has built 5, 7, and 8-figure companies. He's had 2 8-figure exits. Is known as the guy for hiring remote top 1% talent. So he's got the wherewithal and the knowledge around these topics. Some of his achievements, and we could be here all day for that. But he's founder of Solutions 8, which is an 8-figure exit company. Co-host of the Perpetual Traffic Show, top 50 digital marketing thought leader, best-selling author. So yeah, you're in for a treat today. And if you ever struggled to hire or keep someone, the right people on your team, this episode is going to change how you think about doing that. So Kasim, man, welcome to the Elevate Media Podcast today, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, excited to dive into this topic. And, you know, kind of to dive right in, you know, entrepreneurship's not for everybody, right? Being successful in entrepreneurship isn't going to happen for everyone. I still think we got a long way to go before I can say I'm successful. So for you, you know, what even got you started into entrepreneurship and business, man?
I failed at everything else. I'm supremely unemployable.
Who's your last chance, right?
Yeah, this is all I had. You know, success was my only option. That's what Eminem. There's a lot of truth to that, though. I think that, you know, when we say entrepreneurship's not for everyone else, I actually think that it's not meant to be an elitist statement. I think entrepreneurs are broken people. There's a book by Douglas Brackman. It's called Driven. It's what my business partner named our mastermind after. But he talks about the epigenetic phenomenon that produces entrepreneurs. And we're broken effectively in the way that we experience dopamine. 90% of the people who Douglas terms as farmers experience dopamine upon the completion of a goal. Dopamine, serotonin, and I guess their norepinephrine drops. If I'm getting whatever chemical cocktail makes you happy,
right.
I'm not a scientist. I didn't go to school. So 90% of people experience that chemical cocktail when they achieve a goal. Good for them. God bless. That's the way God made humanity. It's how you're supposed to be. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, the 10% who he terms hunters, experience it in pursuit of the goal. And oddly, when you achieve the goal, it drops. And you get, you know, and I think we've all been there to where no matter what happens, any goal we've set for ourselves, as soon as we get there, we're like, oh, darn it.
What's the next one?
Yeah, really. And I think that, you know, some folks are broken a little more than others. But that leads to you, to me, to what we're doing, to why we do it. Because it doesn't make any real sense, you know, like, especially if you live in the first world, man, the 9 to 5, that's a good gig. Benefits and cushy offices and $12 croissants and high rises and what 40 days PTO a year? Are you freaking kidding me?
Right.
Like just stuff that you're just like, man, you know, you never have to worry much about anything. And then there's still the rest of us. There's that fun saying, it's the entrepreneur is the only person that'll work 80 hours a week, so I don't have to work 40.
You're right.
Yeah. So here we are, man.
That's
so
awesome.
I hope that's an answer. I'm just broken. I'm broken like you're broken.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm just different. That's all. I'm just different. I don't know. And it's not a good or bad thing. It's just, I got tired of being told what to do with my time and money and how much I could make and what I could do or couldn't do. And so maybe I'm just stubborn. And I guess I just really like the chase of something new and the adventure. I literally was thinking the other day, and maybe this kind of ties into that, like, what frontier is left unconquered for us now? Like, there's not much, right? Like physical land wise. So it's like, because I have that drive, I'm like, man, I would love to live back in the Wild West where they're exploring the west of the US and just figuring it all out, or, you know, even before then. So like now it's like our final frontier, our wild frontier is the unknowns of starting a brand new business, right?
Yeah. You have to go esoteric with it. It's like the mind, technology, spirituality, space, if you have the money, but you know, you got to make a couple billion before you can launch a rocket.
Right.
Yeah. Ray Dalio's obsessed with the ocean, interestingly. So I guess that's, you know, most of our oceans are unexplored.
That's true. Yeah, I don't want to drown. That's like one of my biggest.
Yeah, the big bodies of water freak me out.
Yeah.
More than space. I'm with you. I'm fine on land. I like it here. I'll snorkel.
Well, okay.
You
Yeah.
know?
I've snorkeled,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I won't go away from the bay. Like the
Man.
people that go like deep water snorkeling, I did that. I think I was in Puerto Vallarta, and I signed up for this snorkeling excursion, not really paying attention to what I was doing. Then we get on a boat, and I'm like, oh, they're just going to bring us to a prettier part. And no, they brought us like out.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And then they were like, all right, jump in. No, I like it here.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll pass on that one too.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, and I like how you put it. Like we're broken in the best sense of the word. But with that too, like understanding that's huge. I think we're just different, and I think I like that. I have not actually. I don't know if I've heard someone say that about people who are trying to build their own business, and I really like that because, I don't know, just there's so much along the journey, right, that we have to figure out along the way, and part of it is ourselves. And so realizing like, we are different, and that's okay. But like for you, as you've been on this journey and you figured that out, like, hey, I'm just different, like I'm broken, and that's all right. What are some other things that you've learned or like mistakes you've made specifically to like even building a team? Because that's a hurdle in itself, trying to even take that step. What has that been for you, and any big mistakes you've made when building a team for the first time?
Yeah, I've made all the mistakes twice. I call myself the world's greatest failure, and it's not self-deprecation. It's actually something I'm kind of proud of. Like I feel forward. I'll tell you that the biggest mistake I have made is the biggest mistake we all make when it comes to talent acquisition. And, you know, we were talking about my books before we hit record. I've got 3,000 books in my house. And I'd say 20% of them probably are some type of business and or self-improvement book. Okay. So bet money right now today. And if you're listening to this and you're near your bookshelf, go to your bookshelf and pull any business book off the shelf.
Yeah.
Literally any one of them. And here's what I guarantee you without a single exception. And I'd love for somebody to challenge me on this. Every business book treats people like commodities. Treats them like, talks about them, refers to them, assumes that humans as an asset within the confines of a business substructure, that people are commodities. And you know that because, again, it's referential. They don't come right out and say it, but that's how we're taught to look at people, train people, pay people, trade people, you know, like, to define terms, a commodity is something that's easily interchangeable. So if you have an ear of corn, right, and I have an ear of corn, and you and I swap, we are no better or worse off than we were moments ago.
Right.
But if you have a CPA and I have a CPA, like if let's say you and I swapped our CPAs, like that's just, you know, like levels of catastrophe waiting for me that I can't even begin to articulate. And even if you have this, you know, the people that grew up in the same town, went to the same school, had the same background, same levels of experience, worked for the same company, like those are two uniquely valuable assets that are not interchangeable to any degree.
Right.
And if you build a business around the commoditization of humanity, you end up with Quicken Loans or a GoDaddy call center or some soul-sucking, horrible, untenable revolving door of everything that's not human.
Right.
So and that's what's really interesting too, is everybody's, you know, I actually really like, I think a lot of people are catastrophizing when it comes to AI. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened for me. Yeah. Because all the things that AI does, that AI can do, are the things that humans shouldn't be doing anyway. It's all I hate the word scale, dude. If I could just, if I could spray people in the face with a bottle of cold water every time I hear the word scale, like I'm not doing that because it doesn't scale. What's cool about AI is now the only things that make money are the things that don't scale. If it scales, AI can do it. And so if it doesn't scale, that means that you need a human to do it. And humans are uniquely suited to doing most things. So I'm going to bring this all full circle. I promise.
I love it. Yeah.
I've built my bio says 5. It's actually now officially 6. We just hit 7 figures TTM with another business I own. I need to update that. I've built $6 million or multi-million-dollar businesses, and I've done it all by finding truly extraordinary human beings and just getting out of their way. And there's if you're familiar with the Pareto distribution, which is a mathematical principle that exists in every organic ecosystem in the world, like, you know, it's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the cows yield 80% of the milk, and 20% of your customers are responsible for 80% of your revenue. 20% of your employees yield 80% of your output. 20% of your employees do 80% of your work. in any organic ecosystem. But what's kind of cool about that, or what's amazing about it, if you really crack the code on it, is you can index towards the 20%. Where most businesses, again, going back to the business books, treating people like commodities, most businesses are actually trying to flatten that, which is insane, because they don't want to see existential crises on an Excel file, because it's all like Goldman Sachs Ivy League douchebags that think that they know. And so they're like, oh, one person is responsible for too much. Let's distribute this risk, quote unquote. But what happens when you flatten a pyramid? You lose the top of the pyramid.
Right.
Which is that's the leverageable part. That's the 20% that are yielding the 80%. So, going to why you didn't want to have a job, you're like, I was tired of being told what to do, right? You were tired of being treated like a commodity. Yeah. If entrepreneurs can build businesses where people aren't treated like commodities, dude, you can have 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 people businesses that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars now.
Yeah.
But you go out and you find that Pareto talent. You find the 20% that does the 80%. And if you're willing to open your mind to the idea that people aren't just going to do the SOPs, they're not just going to check the boxes, they're not just going to do, because that's what the business book teach you, right? Like it's, build a process and then find an easily interchangeable human and have them sit here on the assembly line doing the thing that's gone. That's over. So now the question is, what can AI not do? And go build a business around that with people that are stellar. And the way to find stellar people, by the way, nobody wants to hear this, which is funny because it's an easy button, is you pay more. Right. Winners want to win.
Yep.
And what my goal is to pay 10% more than the high water mark. And when people that are listening to this might hear, 10%, that's not bad. That's not what I said. I said 10% more than the high water mark. Yeah. So if the window is, let's say 70, just to throw numbers out there, okay, 75K to 100K is the salary range. Sure. Well, 10% more than the high water mark is $110,000. That's 40% more than the 75K that you as the entrepreneur have been taught to try to go get this commodity for, because commodities are traded. When you're buying commodities, you're trying to buy you want the most for the least. When you're finding Pareto talent, you want to pay more, because paying 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% more gets you somebody that does 10, 50, 100 times more. And dude, I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not exaggerating. When I sold my business, I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. And when I sold it, one person was responsible for 40% of my revenue. His name's John Moran. He's the greatest Google Ads mind in the world. I ended up having to make him a business partner because he was so important. That's what happens. And it happens again in every organic ecosystem, if you allow it to. So like finding those people, that's what's cool, is you can index towards those people and then you can build these entities. I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I've never run a Google ad campaign myself end to end in my life. I wouldn't know how to. I had the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet before I was ever a real estate investor or knew anything about lead generation. I've built the #1 Montessori agency in the English speaking world. I'm not a trained Montessorian, nor do I own a school. I own a talent agency out of Latin America. I don't speak Spanish, dude. Like that's what's funny is like, I get to do all these things. And then people see me, if you're listening and not watching, I look homeless. I haven't had a haircut in God knows how long. I wear shorts and a t-shirt every day. I'm not presentable. I'm more successful than I deserve to be. And it's not because I'm smarter than anybody. It's because I find people smarter than me and then I get out of the way. Yep. So many entrepreneurs are like, oh, I need to be involved in this process. And I'm like, no, you don't. You definitely do not. I love that point, because like right now where we are in Elevate, like we have 3 solid people on the team, but we're small still. So like my part is guiding, but still letting them be in their strengths. And so like navigating that for the first time has been, I'm doing my best and learning as I go kind of thing. But it's cool to see like those individuals lean into their strengths and like come up with stuff that I was like, oh shoot, yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that, or I wouldn't have done that, like, and get stuff done. It's a cool thing to be a part of, and be able to support them, financially, however else I can support them as a leader. But then them come back and give what they're giving is just, it's humbling to me to be a part and have those kind of people for people who are starting though, who might not have the funds. Because I know you said pay, 10% above watermark. How do you attract people on your team? How do you structure that if you don't have the funds to be able to pay for those type people? Or is it just you find the ones you can afford and then eventually find the next level of people? How do you kind of guide people with that? I'm about to get canceled in this conversation, so we'll dance around it to the best of our abilities, Chris, and then you feel free to edit out whatever you feel is incendiary. Where are you based geographically?
Indiana, so Midwest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really like the Midwest for the reasons I'm about to say. If you are in an emerged nation, right? And what does that mean in a PC world? It's like US, Canada, Western Europe.
Yeah.
If you're in a place where people's needs are not only satiated, but there is social safety nets, A, and then B, there is a rich and vibrant startup and or corporate community.
Yep.
The odds of you being able to hire Pareto talent are slim.
Yep.
Because why? If I'm a kid fresh out of school, I either want to go work for Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, right? Or a company offering like rich stock options in a startup environment where I could potentially become a millionaire in 2, 3, 4 years.
Right.
Or I want to go work for myself.
Yep.
That's where the peak talent goes. And God bless our country, dude. We made it easy to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
It has never, ever, ever, ever been easier to be an entrepreneur. And there's no real downside risk. And I'm saying that on an anthropological scale. I realize that there's risk and we're assuming risk, but you are not going to starve. You're not going to be homeless. Like we have this world where there's no real, tangible, existential threat to you for taking this massive swing. So what does that mean? Employers in the Western world don't have access to Pareto talent because even if you could match the Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook salary, which you cannot.
You don't have the name.
Yeah, you don't have the cachet. You don't have. It's not fun for me to put your name on LinkedIn. There's no way you could meet the benefits.
Right.
You know, like there's no ability for you to be an aspirational employer.
Yep.
Until you go international.
Yep.
If you hire out of Latin America, Asia, North Africa, Eastern Europe, those folks look at you the way people here look at Google, Amazon, Microsoft. They're like, oh God, I'll get to work for a US company getting paid US dollars.
Yep.
And if you ratchet that up a little bit, like my favorite place to hire out of is Latin America right now for a bunch of reasons. Time zones are consistent, English proficiency super high, cultural dissimilarities fall pretty significantly, et cetera, et cetera. And paying in the US dollar has really significant arbitrage opportunities.
Yeah.
And dude, you know, like I'm hiring out of Bogota, Colombia right now. I actually just got back from Colombia, and the largest industry in Bogota is call centers.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever worked at a call center.
I have not.
I worked at 2 as a kid.
Wow.
I worked at MCI and this place called Zentel that was effectively like stealing money from firefighters and burn victim units. It was weird. I wonder if they're still around. Call centers are the modern day coal mines. They're horrible. You know, you show up and it's 10 hours in this fluorescent light building, and then and I was doing outbound calls. So like you're just the phone rings and you're praying to God. You're like, oh, please don't pick up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's just terrible. So I'm taking people in Bogota, Colombia, out of these call center environments.
Okay.
They get to work from home. They get paid more than they make domestically. They work on a semi-flexible schedule. And when I say semi-flexible, all I mean is I'm not clocking you in right on the minute and clocking you out on the minute, and you have to ask me to take your kid to a dental appointment.
Right.
And they do meaningful work.
Yep. And
dude, like the level of talent, I can't begin to articulate the change. So if you're and I'm going to say, imagine we're talking to a majority US audience. If you're a US employer and you've said things like, it's so hard to find good help these days, and if you want something done, good, like do it yourself. That's all horseshit.
Yeah.
There are amazing people. There are unbelievable humans that run through walls and solve problems and we know that because we see it all the time. You're just not set up in the position of, what would you call that? You're not in a leverageable position for receiving. Put yourself in that position by finding people that would actually be really grateful to work for you. And imagine that for just a moment. Imagine what it would be like to have somebody who's unbelievably grateful to work for you.
Yeah.
Because their life circumstances change so much in the way that you're treating them and then how you're paying them. And then cascade that forward across every level of analysis in your business. When I sold Solutions 8, I had 100 employees, or closing in on 100 employees. 6 of them were in the United States.
Yeah.
The rest of them were everywhere else. And dude, I had 40% margins in an industry that aims at 15%, because we were massively more efficient. I had better people than anybody else could possibly fathom. And the one question I got during due diligence, which was an 8-month process, was, where do you find these people?
Yeah.
Like, this is unreal. And it's because I was paying more. I was treating them like adults.
Yep.
And I wasn't looking for people that were manageable. That's the other thing that entrepreneurs do wrong. Entrepreneurs, and they don't like to admit this, but as you get older, it becomes obvious, especially young entrepreneurs. But I think all entrepreneurs are actually afraid of competence. They don't like, because if somebody's smarter than me, especially if I'm small, you know, I'm a small business owner, I've got 4 employees, and you know, whatever it is that I do, let's say I'm a baker. I own a bakery. I don't want someone who bakes better than me. Because what am I here for now? You know what I mean? And then what's going to stop them from taking over the whole shop? And now there's a coup and a mutiny at you know, the SS bakery. And what people don't realize is exactly what you and I talked about at the beginning of this conversation. Most people are not entrepreneurial. Yep. You want those folks. You want people that are better, faster, stronger, smarter, braver, more articulate, more thoughtful, more interesting. And then you find wherever it is that they're a miracle, and then you cut them loose. So don't build a template and say, oh, well, I'm going to hire, you know, Jane or John, and Jane or John's going to come in here and press this button and pull this lever and do this thing. How about hire Jane or John or Sally or Muhammad or whoever, and then just watch them? Because it would do what happens in the productive world is we give somebody 10 things to do. They suck at 2. They do 6 just fine. Check the box. Well done. And then they do 2 better than any human has ever done those 2 things in the history of task management. And what we've been taught to do by all these great business books that surround me is to go focus on the 2 they suck at. And we're like, all right, we're going to get you there, and we're going to build a performance improvement program, and you know, you're going to shadow Sally because Sally knows it's like stop that. How about we take these 2 things that they're amazing at, and that becomes their job, you know? But that's the problem, dude, is it doesn't scale. When that doesn't scale, well, all right, fine, great, good for you. Go build a business that AI can replace overnight, you know? Or maybe look at people like they're literal. Dude, the human being is a miracle. Like a literal, and I'm saying literal the way, not like a millennial says it. I'm saying it as a person who understands the meaning of the word. People, I don't care if you don't believe in God. Even actually more, if for people who don't believe in God, a person is even more of a miracle. It's like, we're just these super smart apes running around building shit and solving problems and going to the moon. You know what I mean? Like every human is a literal miracle. And if you treat them that way, you get, like, if you look for miracles, you find miracles. And if you look for a cog in the machine that's going to be an interchangeable commodity, that's what you get too.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, it's crazy. Like the first team member we had is from Ghana.
Yeah.
And he's been amazing. And he's just went above and beyond, you know, expectations. And like, it's led into, you know, what we have today, really. And it's the same thing. Like, they're really good at, or he was really good at editing. And so that's what he focused on. And that's what I try to do with the rest. Like we brought on our director of marketing and content strategy, like do your thing. And I tell him like, this is not like, if I have ideas, but if you're like, hey, no, that doesn't work at all. Like, just tell me, like, I'm cool with that. Like, this is your guys' area or whatever. Like, I just come with ideas sometimes and they're like, yeah, no, that's stupid. And so I was like, and I'm like, I'm fine with that. Like I told him today, I was like, if it gets too complicated, just smack my hand. Say, Chris, like, dude, no, like you're making this way too hard. And I'm like, I'm not above reproach. Like you guys have your strengths. I have mine. We're working together. Just because I'm like started this doesn't mean I'm anything above anyone else. And so I think and people don't realize that, like, there are so many people out there looking for these opportunities in the US, outside the US, that you can find, like, to your point, talent that is ready to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's what people want, dude. They want a vision. Yeah. And I think for you and for the person listening who's probably an entrepreneur, when you ask yourself, you know, at the end of my little tirade, and hopefully it wasn't too soapboxy,
no, I like
you shouldn't have anything left. Like there should be no tasks left for you because you've hired for all of them. Your job is to work on the business. And what that means specifically is define the vision. Vision is so important. And it's a lot of lip service, but people spend very little time on it. But when you really you're like, oh, this is my gig. This is what I'm doing. I'm letting everybody know this is the direction that we're heading, and here's how we're going to get there. And vision isn't just where, but it's also how. You know, here are the values with which we're going to articulate ourselves, and then holding to that, like, that's enough of a job all by itself.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can crack that code, my favorite answer in the whole world is, I don't know.
Yep.
Hey, Kasim, where are the report? I don't know. What do we do with it? I have no idea. How do we, I don't know. Go. And then it's,
we'll
I don't know.
It
ask
out.
Yvonne, ask Leandra, ask Elizabeth.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Or it's my FitFo, figure it the F out. But I don't want to be on the org chart anymore. You know, like I'm a business builder. I'm not a C something or a VP of this or that, whatever. Like don't talk to me.
It reminds me, yeah, right. It reminds me of, I think, the story of Henry Ford, who was being, I want to say, like on trial or something. Something happened in his organization, and so he had a bunch of the board members or something like coming to him and saying like, "Hey, why did this happen, or how does that work?" Kind of thing. And he's like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
They're wait. They're like, "You don't know?" He's like, "No." They're like, "You're Henry Ford. Like, you don't know that." He's like, "No," but and he reaches over, he picks up a phone. He said, "But I can call exactly who on
Right.
my team does know." He said, "That's what like. I build a team so I don't have to know it all. I have better people in those positions than me to get that done." And
Right.
that just always resonated with me once I heard that. I was like, that's it. Like, there are so many people that are better than us in so many different things. Like, bring them together and create something amazing to make such a big impact in the world.
Dude, if you picture right now an organization run by a person who is the smartest, best, fastest, brightest, most creative person in that org, like, you know what I mean? That's a sad, you don't picture a superhuman surrounded by other demigods,
Right.
you actually picture like this just sad, maybe jealous, but egotistical, whatever, surrounded by yes men.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Mm,
yeah, you want it, the problem is entrepreneurs want manageable people. They want people that they know they can control, but manageable people have to be managed.
right.
If you want people that take your business and run with it, that don't need to be managed, you have to contend with people. Like you said, you're not above reproach. Most people don't necessarily have, at least not as an a priori pre-existing framework.
Right.
That's not where they're approaching life from. And
Yeah.
and you can learn that the easy way or the hard way.
Yeah.
Man, once you get there, like, oh my God, just get out of their way.
Yeah, and that's what I like, even in the moment now, like, understanding, like, okay, I gotta get more out of the way, and so, like, navigating that, and anything for me, like, growing up, like, playing soccer and sports and stuff, like, understanding my position. I knew, like, even if I wasn't starting, um, or if I was hurt or like, I still had a position, and that was to cheer people on. That was to do my best in practice to help, the varsity get better by just really, uh, being a just a fly on it, like, and just taking it to them and making them have to work hard. So, like, I knew my position, whatever helped the team,
Mm.
um, for our ultimate goal of winning. And it's the same kind of mindset I bring into the business. Like, I want to build a team with the mission of, making a bigger impact in the world through what we do, and we can do it together, and we can all succeed and have, what we want out of life, kind of thing. Um, so for you, like, where do you like, where can people like go to find these type of people? Um, Especially if they're starting overseas, like, are there channels that you guide people to going and connecting with? Like, Indeed, is it still a good thing? LinkedIn still? Like, where do you kind of guide people to find these individuals?
Depends on where you are, where you're targeting
Sure.
geographically. I'm about to publish a book called Hire,
Oh, nice.
which I'm giving away for free. So people can go to Kasim.me if they want the book. There's no, paywall or anything. They can literally have it. And in the book, I have a resource that includes a directory of a bunch of hiring portals.
Yeah.
But to answer your question directly, so this doesn't feel like a bait and switch, LinkedIn is great for Latin America. Almost
Okay.
all of Latin America, broadly speaking. I like smaller professional job boards if you're looking for individual roles. So
Okay.
if you want a graphic designer, go find, you know what, dude, it's a traffic problem. And what marketers know, all good marketers know that traffic problems are solved by more conduits of traffic.
Mhm.
So if you just go to Indeed and post your job posting on Indeed, well, congratulations, you're now at the mercy of Indeed.
Sure.
Instead, go find all the little tributaries. So that would be like, Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups and networking communities and, Telegram threads, which, by the way, they're all so easy to access. And the one thing from a commercial perspective they'll allow you to post that doesn't have to do with whatever topic it is they're discussing is job opportunities, because that helps them bring something really valid to their community. So,
Okay.
if you need a Ruby on Rails developer, or you're looking for somebody who's really good at content writing, but they have to speak Mandarin or whatever, like, no matter how specific it is, yes, go to the job boards, of course. And there are regional job boards. If you want to hire out of the Philippines, it's onlinejobs.ph. If you want Pakistan, it's rosie.pk. India has 150 of them. So go, like, the job boards, yes, definitely. And try to find the pools of talent, figure out where they hang out. And there's a ton of school groups that are free. There's a ton
Okay.
of, like, whatever those little communities or masterminds are, and make it hard. In my book, I talk about what I call fly traps.
Yeah.
if you're really looking for Pareto talent, like if you're looking for
Yep.
the top, you know, when we train EAs, which is what I do professionally now, it
Okay.
takes 1,000 applicants to produce one vetted EA.
Wow.
And we put them through hell, dude. We put them
Yeah.
through like what I would consider, you know, it's like Navy SEAL training. You want to do something really similar, because if you're paying 10% more than high water mark,
Sure.
you earn a position of aspiration. So I do some really basic things, like at the top of every job description I have, it says to apply, please make sure the subject line reads, I actually read the instructions.
Yep.
Because I'll get, no joke, I'll get 9,000 submissions for one role. And you can play auto filter now to where if it doesn't say I actually read the instructions, it automatically archives and never see it.
Really?
And then of the ones that I see, and it's not me, it's my EA now filtering them.
Yeah.
But if they don't actually follow the instructions, you know, and I'll do little really benign things like make sure that your email or your resume reads, you know, I want a link instead of an attachment. I want a PDF, and I want this naming convention.
Yep.
Little stuff like that.
Yep.
The most important fly trap that I use, that I would encourage everybody to use, we're taught to hire based off of interviews and resumes, which I think is so stupid.
Right.
Because they tell you nothing.
Right.
Instead, I do a trial project. So I get people to submit. I shortlist to 10 to 20 people, and then I send them a message and I'll say, hey, Chris, I've been hiring for 20 years. I know we're not going to have a productive discussion until I'm able to work with you. So why don't you let me pay you in advance? I'll send you whatever a reasonable amount of money is for that geography. You know, if you're in the Philippines, $20 is great. I'll send you $20 to do 2 hours worth of work. How does that sound? You say yes. I say, great. Send me your PayPal and I'll prepay you. Here's the funny part though. I prepay them. And so like, let's say you did this with 10 people, it's $200. And you think like, oh golly, $200, shucks. That's, you know, a pretty hefty expense for every new hire I want to make. Well, hear me out. I prepay everybody and then I don't follow up with the trial project. And I wait to see who ghosts me. Because if somebody were to steal $20 from you, that's not somebody you want to hire. So I would pay 10 times that to learn that lesson right out of the gate. And then there are people that they're not trying to steal from you, but they're not very accountable. I'll get folks that follow up a month later being like, hey, you never sent me the trial project. I'm like, oh, you don't say. And then the people that follow up, you put more fly traps in their way if you want to. But once you have the trial projects and they've done, you know, the work, dude, I don't need an interview anymore. I still do it to, you know, walk through the process. I mean, by the time you're done with a process like that, you end up with like bloodthirsty assassins, just killers that you're thrilled to be working with. And it's not uncommon for me to hire multiple people for the same role, because I'm like, I can't afford not to hire both of you. And I know I'm growing enough to justify that. Yeah. So that you build it like a funnel. It's a sales funnel, just like anything else. Make it attractive on the top end and then filter a ton of people out. And whoever comes in the bottom is going to be epic.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And, you know, I think that's a great piece of advice, is that trial project. Because how do you know you're gonna mesh or it's gonna work well if you don't even know how they work? Because like you said, the resume and stuff is just kind of platitudes, is just showing, you know, whatever on paper, but it doesn't show the actual results, what they could provide. So, you know, how do you know? Okay, so let's kind of dive into that. So if you're hiring for these positions, how do you know what is worth hiring a person for versus using AI? Because I know you kind of mentioned the scalable part, then, you know, kind of use AI for that. Can you kind of walk into the differentiation of when to use AI versus when to hire?
Yeah, I'm, and this is a philosophical position that I think some people can choose to disagree with if they'd like to. I don't know that the winners and the losers are going to be easily fleshed out in short order. So it's easy for me to spreck in the bushy babble now. I'd ask everybody who's listening to just temper what I'm saying against your own wisdom. That said, I don't think AI is a top-down initiative. Okay. I think that's obvious. And here's what I mean by that. You don't bring in a consultant who's like, oh, Chris, I'm going to help you redesign Elevate Media Group using AI. You're going to put this AI tool here and this AI tool here, and we're going to sew those together, and bam, you know, like that's not the way this is going to manifest. AI is a bottom-up initiative. And what that means is your employee from Ghana is editing and has, you know, 6 hours worth of editing on their slate today, and says, you know what? I spend a lot of time in transcription. I can use Descript for the transcription, and I can use this for the, and then they start to kind of sew in this very specific tool for this very specific implementation, you know, unless it's different, like it's if this, then that, except when, right? It's like, I'm only using Descript if the transcription's in English, because if it's in Spanish, I know this other tool works better. It has to be bottom up. So, Mr. and Mrs. Entrepreneur, I don't think you pick when you use AI. I think you bring in really intelligent people that know what the hell they're doing, and then your incentives aren't built around, they're built around output.
Yep.
So the worst things employers do is they misalign incentives with their employees. And one really, really, really good way to misalign incentives, by the way, is to pay people for time.
Right.
Because paying people for time, it's like, all right, I can just sit here if you want me to sit here.
Yeah.
You know, but if you want me to create videos, it's like, dude, I'll give you $10 for every short you make. And then you find out like, oh, you don't just make 50 shorts a day, you can make 5,000 shorts a day.
Right.
Because you got really smart with, and you think to yourself like, oh, golly, now I have to pay $10 per short. Well, okay. Yeah. And if you are in a leverageable business, you're charging, you know, $1,000 or whatever it is that you're charging. And so you put yourself in a position where you have aligned incentives.
Yeah.
So that's my answer is I don't think AI is going to replace roles wholesale. I think it's going to replace tasks.
Yep.
And then those people are going to be allowed to expand. That's why you want Pareto talent. Yeah. Because if you hire mediocre talent, pre-AI, there was a place for mediocre talent. Let's say that you're a graphic design shop, right? And you have your A players, but every now and then there's overflow that comes in. Well, you've got Jerry, and Jerry's a 6 on a 10 scale, but that's okay because Jerry can knock out some of the overflow. Well, now take Jerry and put the nuclear weapon that is AI on Jerry. Right? You just scaled mediocrity to the moon. And to scale 6 out of 10 averages your business down to failure. So you don't want to ever scale a Jerry. You want to get rid of all your Jerrys and you want to only have your A+ talent, your 11s out of 10s. Yeah. Because now it's like, we're not going to have an overflow problem. We're going to have a quality of output problem. Bill Gates has a great quote. He says that automation applied to an inefficient system only amplifies the inefficiency. That's going to be true to AI to degrees that are hard to articulate. That's the other thing. That's why I also think that what you need are miracles and not commodities, because the commodity person is the role player. The miracle person is the person that continues to be valuable regardless of how the role changes. And they're the ones that teach you how the role changes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and that's an interesting thing too. Like with roles changing, like we've seen more in our, last handful of years with virtual work changing, right? Like the landscape of, I know that, they're making people come back to office and stuff, but there's still the hybrid based on businesses. Like, how do you lead? How do you guide your team through virtual connections? Because, we're not all in office here at Elevate. And so how do you kind of guide with those changes?
It's harder. I think people who think that virtual work can be just as integrated as in-person work are wrong. Yeah. And this is, I've built now a half dozen virtual businesses, but there are things you can do. We have an all hands meeting every Friday. In the all hands meeting, there's an open mic where one person presents on something they're passionate about that has nothing to do with work.
Nice.
We have like fun Slack threads on like books or movies or travel or kids or pets.
Oh, nice.
I like to break people up into smaller pods so that they're working in small groups and communities. At Solutions 8, we had a strategist, a specialist, and a client manager, and they manage the same slate of clients.
Okay. Yep.
And so like finding ways to make sure that people don't lose, semblances of human connection are really important. We also get together. Like I just went to Bogota with my team. There's no reason to do that other than we wanted to, all get together and meet belly to belly and have fun. And we had a little party for all of our EAs. Nice. And that was, I don't know how much that cost us. I bet you it approached $5-6 grand.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that. And it was really important. Because we all got to know each other, and not every entity can afford that. I do think that we lose something not being together.
Yeah,
not being in person. Obviously, right? We'd have to. Yeah. But I think that the benefits outweigh the costs most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like the in-person stuff, and we're about 50-50. And so, yeah, it's definitely a different landscape to navigate that and keep people connected and keep them feeling like they're not on an island and things like that. And so, yeah, I was just curious. It's an interesting thing. We're still, we still have to navigate and figure out nowadays. So, but no, it's been a great conversation. I'd love to end with kind of like some just rapid fire questions and just dive into these. And so what would you say is the most underrated skill in hiring?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's the onboarding and the training.
Okay.
Is that a good answer, Chris? Because it's not, I mean, hiring
Yeah.
happens pre-training. And I think where people think, oh, I hired the wrong person. No, you might have found somebody that's great. And then you bring them on and you screw them up. People
Sure.
don't know how to delegate. They think that, you know, they don't understand authorship creates ownership. So I see employers ruining. I own a staffing agency. We place executive assistants, and I know they're assassins. And then I place them in an organization, and then I watch them get melted. You know, like they take this really proficient person. Dude, imagine a really smart person who's driving, and you're like, turn left here, turn right there. Or they're creating, and you're like, make the square circle, change red to blue. Like,
Right.
it doesn't take many times of that before somebody takes their hand off the wheel, and they're like, all right, you're driving now.
Yep.
Obviously, you know, like let them drive, delegate projects, not tasks. Don't harp on little things. If it's subjective, let it go. You're not always right. And if people are willing to do that, and they're willing to train in a way that's actually symbiotic, it's not abusive, I think that they end up with really, really good people. But that's the big mistake that I see people make, is their onboarding is just abysmal.
Okay. No, that's good. And it's definitely, it's definitely something you've got to consider, is how you're bringing them on. And yeah, there's so much to think about. Favorite AI tool right now?
ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Pay for the pro, pay the $200. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So with all the books behind you, if you're watching this on video, all his books, 3,000 books behind him, what is one book every entrepreneur should read? I know you said some of them.
Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas.
What was it?
Anti-Fragile. That's the most important concept I've ever been exposed to, especially today.
Okay.
Yeah. He's a hard read because he's so obnoxiously arrogant, but he deserves to be, because he might be one of the smartest people alive.
Gotcha. Okay. Anti-Fragile. Nice. Worst hiring mistake you've ever made?
So many. Dude, dear God in heaven. Finding roles for people is number one. Find people for roles, not roles for people. And then number two, and this is one that everybody made, when you know they're not a fit, cut them.
Gotcha. How do you know when they're not a fit?
To be honest, I hate such an esoteric answer, but you feel it. It's in your gut. You're like, I just know this person's not going to work out. But I mean, if you keep trying and they keep whatever missing, we're small businesses. We don't have the margins, the profitability, the time to sit there and wait for somebody to find themselves.
Right.
You know, you make one mistake, it's my fault. Hey, this is a problem. Let's not do that again. You make two mistakes, it's your fault. Hey, remember we talked about this? You make three mistakes, you're fired. And I don't mean little mistakes.
Right.
I mean, like, hey, this can't continue.
Yeah.
You know, 1, 2, 3, done. And I've gotten a little callous, maybe. I love people to death, dearly and deeply. You know, I've spent an hour on this call calling them miracles.
Yeah.
And act like an effing miracle, or I have no space for you, you know?
Yeah, I like that. So last one. If everything's done, you're gone, you know, you're dead, and all of your accolades, accomplishments, life in general is forgotten, except one thing, what would you want that one thing to be remembered?
My kids.
Yeah.
I just want my sons to remember that I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just being a dad, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. I love my kids too. So, well, Kasim, this has been a great conversation, man. Truly appreciate everything you've kind of broken down with hiring and the connection to AI and how we can do it better. Where can people go to connect with you, learn more from you, and things of that nature?
Kasim.me, KASIM.me. All my socials. I do a YouTube video every day. You can have my books for free. You can hire one of our EAs.
Awesome.
We can just hang out and be buddies.
Cool. Yeah. I would take him up on that. Go get connected with Kasim and check out his stuff, get his books, and just continue to learn from him. Again, Kasim, so grateful for you and your time today. Thanks again.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to this and you haven't yet, make sure you go follow the show. It just helps us get this in front of more ears, so we can make a bigger impact together, and continue to go out there, make a difference, elevate your life, elevate your business, and we'll talk to you again next time.